Have you ever sat there after getting your youth intake, staring at all the lovely talent because the preview didn't lie to you for once, thinking, sure, this is great, lots of lovely players for the future here, but wouldn't it be better if they were all 55 years old? No? Just me then. Just a quick one from me today as I'm in the middle of working on a new agent video, but I really wanted to show you this. As I'm sure some of you are aware, it's possible to change the ages that players come through a nation's youth intake at using the pre-game editor. I assume this is due to how different countries have different rules about players in academies and stuff like that. Out of interest, if that was something you were looking to mess with, the way you'd go about doing that is, of course, in the editor, adding advanced rules to a certain nation, and it's under the nation and then transfer rules. There is a little box down here, where is it, called Youth Player Minimum Age. So if you tick this, obviously it defaults to 16, but you'll see in the bottom left here, it shows that the ranges are between 14 and 25. So if I try to add in 30 to this box, the moment I release it, it will in fact default back down to 25, which makes sense. What editor wizard Hadrian has done, however, is completely break it. Now, a layman such as myself was more than happy to simply tell you that he waved a magic mouse across it and Sanderson-esque data spread came and changed it for you. But he insisted I give you a one-sentence explanation that actually makes sense. So here it is. We've unpackaged a file within the FM folders called comp editor. We found and changed some values in the game code and repackaged it. Essentially, parameters. What parameters? Now, I can't even actually show you this myself because I don't have a balked version that would allow me to do so, but essentially what it would do is it allows you to enter any number here to your heart's content, and it will actually accept the value. Now, I say within reason, but technically that could actually work. It won't, but it could. However, we found that the game gets a bit grumpy if you try to get a little bit too silly with it, so after some tests, we found that mid-50s was about as far as you could push it without FM picking up its ball and going home for dinner. Today, we have two sims to take a little look at. The first with the settings that I've just outlined, with the maximum age set to around about mid-50s, because as you can imagine, players that generate at that sort of age tend to retire quite quickly, as they could do with a sit down.
My niece got this from Shackleton's, you know.
We have another version where they come through in their mid-30s instead. That way they can actually potentially play for a season or two before exchanging their football boots for slippers. Oh, and in both sims, we changed the league rules so that only players over the age of those youth intakes were actually allowed to play in the league matches, because fun. One final quirk before we actually get into the sims is that because the game is generating these players at the ages that they are, it considers them to be complete footballers, and as a result, you can see that they come through with maximum current ability, which does kind of make sense if they're 55 or even 35 at that point. But that means that from the moment they arrive, they are ready for first team football, because the youth team is easy to get into and out of, you know. This is just an example with Fulham's youth intake. Ignore the fact that there is a younger player in here. That's just my Patreon regen, and obviously they do have faces because of the Z-Gen Nugen pack, but this is nothing to do with that. You'll see that my guy is actually 16 because I have a set birthday on him. But for example, this Austrian chap here, Michael Blechschmidt, he is 54 years old. Now, it doesn't always use the exact age parameter that you set. It's just sort of a guideline. But you can see he is 54 years old and has reasonably good attributes, you might say. His technicals and mentals will obviously be insanely valuable, but obviously the physical attributes won't be quite as high because he's 54, and therein leads to being part of the fun of this. And then once you get to the end of a season, you end up with situations like this, where Wolves player Jack Dolan here, who's 53 years old, slightly younger for some of this patch potentially, manages to bang 12 and 8 over the course of the end of a Premier League season. But more importantly, he hasn't actually decided to retire, and that will happen sometimes with these guys, as he does have a slightly longer contract. So one of the great things about the sims we're about to look at is going to be seeing if any players do go on for a few years and see what the oldest player, because we can look at the records, has been in the leagues over this period. Because I turned on all the leagues, in England anyway, because it does go all the way down, just to see what mad stuff can happen. Not so much with the teams themselves, because that will heavily depend on the youth intakes them there within, but more to do with the ridiculous records that some players will no doubt set. So let's get over to that now, because obviously this was never something that you'd actually want to do in a real-time save. However, I have put the links to the database, of course, or the databases, in the description so you can have a play around should you want to. That said, there is the over 35s World Cup coming up this summer, I believe, and we think there might be a way to actually recreate that in FM by changing a lot of rules and rebuilding tournaments. So if that is a video you would like to see with an over 35s World Cup, then let me know and we'll see if we can make it happen. So to the Sims, we're going to start off with the 35s one just to see if there are any interesting ones, but I really want to get ahead to the longer one too. So as you can see, it's 2047 in this version of the Sim, and I'll just quickly show you the rules of the league so you get an idea of which one we're actually in. So I mean, you can see that the league it's slightly different in there, with Everton having won a few. There's been a few different winners, as you can imagine. But if you go to the rules page, you'll see that obviously there's the under 21 21 rule in there too, but that doesn't seem to actually apply most of the time. Players under 35 are not allowed to play. So that actually might exclude some guys from the youth intakes. If we just go to Everton's team, you can see that they have got a team of everybody is 36 to 38 years old because it's previous youth intakes that they no doubt would have come through. But I reckon if we look at the records for what has been 23 years into this save, there's bound to be some guys I think that have touched 40 and have played some games in the top flight and whatnot, and the other leagues too potentially. We want to find the oldest player. Oh, Stanley Matthews. Of course, yeah, but we can do season by season and see if we can find a really old one. So oldest player by season, well, we actually had, although that's just real players, that's Andy Lonergan and Thiago Silva, Ashley Young. Then it starts to get into actual regens, it would seem, and it looks like the oldest here is Klaus Isufi, 40 years old. He's obviously retired now, but he actually managed to bang out four full seasons at Arsenal after Jennings, as Kosovan at Arsenal too, which is kind of cool. 130, oh, he's a goalkeeper. He is a goalkeeper as well, which would make sense that he was able to go a little bit longer, which does make me wonder about the oldest goal scorers too, because that'll probably drop it right down. No one quite into the 40s there, although Ashley Young did grab one as well. There is a 39-year-old here though. There's actually another one here. Sam Maloney was the oldest goal scorer 2 years in a row, but we can't actually click him because unfortunately it was long enough ago. But in terms of recent seasons, unless this guy is clickable, he is. Tony Blackwell actually is clickable. So Tony Blackwell of Fulham also managed 3 full seasons for them too, and 7 caps for Wales. More recently, Connor Healy of Ipswich, wait, he always got straight to staff. Does mean we can actually look at his stats properly though. So yeah, in the Championship, he did 3 full seasons for Ipswich Town as well before hanging up his boots. Sort of fell off quite quickly, it would seem. Gonna have a look down the league, see if we've got anyone that maybe hit 41. Jorge Spittle here, which is a brilliant name, for Billericay Town, by the way, in the Championship. Come on, FM. You know you want to give me a... Oh, Levi Hartridge was only like a couple of months away from being 41. There we go! We've got one! 40, not just 41, he was 41 and a half, because that's how you measure age when you're 41. 41 and a half year old Yusuf Nanziayamo of Stafford Rangers there. That's insane. We got one. Oh, we actually have one we can click on. Hassan of Cray, who has now, of course, retired, has become an assistant manager, came through Hampton and Waterlooville, but just kept on playing. 41 years old, playing for Cray. You love to see it. I genuinely am very curious now to see what's going to happen in the 55th one, though, because obviously, at that kind of age, most likely you're going to get 1 season out of them at most. If anyone's played more than 1 season, I'll be very, very surprised. But I feel like we're going to have a couple in there because maybe super high natural fitness. Because I want to focus more on the other one, I will just quickly run you down these leagues to see if there is any crazy teams in there. I can't even click it. There we go. So Billericay and Aldershot in the Championship. Bury up to 10th there as well. Shout out to Radcliffe, who've been promoted from Sky Bet League 1. They love it. Why is it Luton always seem to drop right down the leagues in any one of my sims like this? Shout out to Bournemouth in National League South. It has not gone well for them so far. But also, shout out to Kenneth Okoya, who has 45 goals this season for Farnborough at 36. And fair play to him, 51 and 51. You can't say fairer than that. Right, okay, to the big one now. And this one we went a little bit further because I just left it overnight and it apparently just ran quicker for some reason. So this is the one where it's technically set to under 45s can't play, because I think that's where the limit was, but the players are all jetting at like 55 anyway. So really, Everton, I think, have won the top flight in both of the sims that we've done. Wigan have got a title in there too. Premier League's down to 94th. Wow, okay. Premier League is now a worse league than that. Might not even be they're worse than Gibraltar. What on earth? I want to check the coefficients before anything else. I think the coefficients will be okay. No, they will not. Hi, England, where are you? England? Help? England? Well, okay then. So England are 52nd in the coefficient charts now. Malta finally got ahead of England, everybody. Building a nation complete. Total side effect, was not expecting that. I figured the players just are kind of good still, so it wouldn't make too much of a difference. But I guess if their entire youth intakes just retire at the end of the season, they don't have any players to put in at that point in the new year. It does make you wonder what would happen if you just flipped all the reputations of all the leagues just to see what kind of madness would ensue as far as coefficients, even without touching the coefficient charts. Because I already did the flipped coefficient video last year. Leagues in focus. Who? Obviously, we don't know that, and we'll have to go back. We won't be able to find the top scorers immediately, but we can at least have a look at what happened last year. So Shrewsbury are in there. Sheffield Wednesday were in there. I love that. I'm used to seeing 12 English sides in Europe, but no, 3 it is. Well done, Burnley, you've come second in the Premier League. Your reward is Conference League. Let's just have a look at Everton's squad then, shall we? Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a few great... That'll do it. That will do it. The other guys presumably have already retired from their youth intake. So Antonio Jones is their best, well, the oldest player of the bunch, it would seem, 54-year-old, who is of course retiring. And I think we are technically into the following season now. So yes, they got 1 year out of him and 8 appearances. Good God, Matthew Youssef isn't retiring, by the way. No indication that he's going to retire. that indicates that they have maybe had some guys go on for more than one. 2 caps for Nigeria. Look at his technical ability. He is ridiculous. Can't run. Technically gifted, though. I wonder if we've had any, like, elderly Ballon d'Or winners. Seems unlikely because of the amount of game time they'd have got, but I'm curious. If they're coming through at 55, roughly, 56 is seemingly doable. I wonder if you've got anyone touching 58. I think that might be a stretch, but if we could find a 58-year-old, I'd be impressed. Oldest player, boom. 53. It's basically just 53, isn't it? It's 53 across the board. This is the youngest player. I'm a moron. This is the youngest player. You can see how I could make that mistake. There we go. That's more like it. Still no 58s, but we've got lots of 55s in here. I'm going to be real careful to see if there is any 56s. You're probably spotting something I'm not, as always with these videos, but we've got some guys that are well towards 56, like, for example, Damian Kelly, who is naturally retiring from Tottenham. Hang on a minute. Oh, no, that's into the new season. So, yeah, they basically seem to do the first season. Sometimes they retire immediately. Sometimes, if they're really nice, they get themselves that second season. Just checking on any. Yep, he had 2, but 36 and 35. Fair play, Jairus Beanie. 5 England caps too. England were like, yeah, let's call up this 53-year-old. Well played. This one makes absolutely 0 sense. But I think what's happened here is he was poached from Nottingham Forest in some manner using that poaching mechanic prior to the save start. Because this is a regen, remember? Then came through 5 years later at Man United. 55 years old, or I guess technically 53, which still means he was 48 when he was poached from Nottingham Forest's youth academy. That is giving full-on hello fellow kids vibes. All right, down the league we go. I want to see a 56. I reckon the National League's going to do us here. The other reason a 56 would be interesting is because it would indicate that perhaps they have played that 3rd season. People like Josh McCleary here didn't even manage 1. They got the 1 and then 1 and done. One thing we should be able to see now that we're into the oldest one is actually looking at the oldest player here, and it will show it was Christopher Fitzpatrick of Middlesbrough, all but 14 years ago, who nearly got to 55 in 300 days. Does the Premier League have a similar one? Yeah, it's Ezra Shade, who I believe that's the same exact day. Oh, not quite. They can't seem to get past 55 and 300. Brian Shield of Barnsley in League One, 55 and 287. 281 for Antonio Balde of York City. Come on. You know you want to. Oh, boring. Vanarama National League. Get your act together. It's even worse in National League North. Is it just the pitch quality? I guess as well there's a chance that maybe the players further down are spawning with lower natural fitness. Shout out to Middlesbrough for the 17-1 victory here. That must have been a day. I like how all these giant victories, like Bury 13-1, 15-1, 17-1, 14-1 in the... Why do they always get 1? I mean, looking down the leagues just to see if there is any kind of mad stuff. Let's go to the last season. Leicester promoted. That's actually fairly normal looking down it so far. Wow, that's surprising. No, like, Radcliffe's or anything like that. It's interesting how doing it with over 55 seems to have caused less chaos as far as the actual individual leagues are concerned. This is where we find Bournemouth rocking around in the National League South again. I presume Luton are down here too. They always seem to be. There they are. What? What is with Luton? Is Luton's academy just absolutely gopping? Yeah. That might be because of the save, but it do be kind of bad when they have 1 youth recruitment. That's just a guy standing in a local park with a notepad and a pair of binoculars trying not to look sus. At least Bournemouth escaped that fate this time. Yeah, they're chilling around in League 2 with a guy called Dory Seaborn, which is an amazing name because we finally found Dory and Seaborn too. Yeah, believe it or not, Ballon d'Ors have not been dominated by English sides over the period of this save, as you can imagine. England are 112th in the world. 112th, which presumably means their entire national team is filled with players that are either insanely old, possibly even older than the manager, or certainly close to it, or are players that have joined other clubs outside of England. I'm kind of curious to see what the national team actually... Okay. Now, it could just be because we're not actually in a squad call-up point right now, but it's a bit of a mishmash. They've got Jorge Barrios, who is 54 years old, and then just a 16-year-old dude. No wonder the squad's struggling. Yeah, look at that. All of the English youth players are coming from Welsh clubs, and they're just randomly Enfield Town, because somehow they've managed to escape this, and I assume that's because he's got second nationality. One thing we did notice is if players had second nationality, sometimes they'd be able to skip it, because they would count as that nationality instead of English. I'm curious to see how they've done in Euros now. Not well. Not well at all. In fact, bottom of the group. They got a draw again. I love that. Even then, they still managed to get a draw against Ireland. Got to the World Cup here. Somehow, they were the hosts. They were the hosts. That's how they got to the World Cup. They hosted it. Got to the Euros as well. This is England's only way to qualify for national tournaments. Is like, we're crap, but we'll host. It's like that guy that no one really likes that much, but he's got a really cool house. Oldest player was Mark Jackson against Gibraltar a few years ago at 55. Not bad. And the oldest goal scorer was Christoph Keogh, also against Gibraltar. Was that the same game? It actually was. Anyway, I realised this video was pretty dumb. That's kind of my jam. I do have some more normal stuff coming soon with an agent video and a new World Cup video, probably with Scotland coming out very, very soon as well, along with some more stuff like this where we bring national service to the English football leagues. So if you have enjoyed this, drop a like. That'd be awesome. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. That'd be glorious as well. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Hold your gun, Capybara. Bye-bye.